Hey, this is Troy from Planet 76. We've got some really good Sixers-focused content coming your way today. Make sure you subscribe to the pod so you can be in the know when we release new content. Enjoy the show. All right, Sixers fans, welcome to another episode of Planet 76 Podcast. I am your host, Troy. This is episode 171 of the podcast, recording Monday, February 24th, after a Sixers blowout loss to the Chicago Bulls at home at the Wells Fargo Center. There's really two things that are kind of funny about this matchup that the Sixers had with the Bulls. So they, again, absolutely crushed 142 to 110 at home against the Bulls, who came into this matchup losing 6 in a row. Sixers came into this matchup losing 7 in a row. So combined, 13 straight losses between these two teams. And so someone had to win. And it was the Bulls that come out on top in a big fashion. That's the first thing that's hilarious. And then two, if you're still even into monitoring the NBA standings with where the Sixers have fallen to, for the last, while the Sixers have been on this stretch of losing games, they've been the 11 seed right behind the Bulls, who are the 10, which would be the last spot in the play-in. And it's just kind of funny because the Sixers have sucked so bad, since before the All-Star break and since. And they've lost absolutely no ground to the Bulls because the Bulls kept losing as well. So for the longest time, they were like a game and a half out of that magic 10 spot for the play-in. And then now they sit at 2.5 back. And actually the Brooklyn Nets have leapfrogged the Sixers for that 11 right now, because Sixers have lost to Brooklyn twice over this 8-game losing skid. They have 2 losses to Brooklyn, 1 to Toronto, 1 to Chicago, just some of the notable ones there that are pretty sad because those teams are not very good. But neither are the Sixers. So Sixers sit at 20-37, and there's been a lot of talk about what the Sixers will do, should do, will do with the remaining games that they have left. 25 games left, 20-37, and there's one of two camps. One is saying, just wait till we, hopefully we can get in the play-in and make some noise. We're going to be a dangerous team in the play-in because Joel's going to be healthy and all of these things. That's one side, and then there's another side that says, let's just tank. Like, this season's over, let Joel rest. He's clearly not healthy, let him rest. Season's over, it's done, who cares? Move on. So there's one of two camps that some people are in, and I think for me, if I'm being honest, like before today, or before this recent, like really bad losing skid the Sixers have been on, I would have sided more with like, hey, if the Sixers are healthy and they somehow make the play-in and they somehow get into the playoffs after that, watch out. On this very podcast, we've been talking about that because the Sixers, it's been a season full of lows. And this might be the lowest of the lows for them at 20-37, losing 8 straight, losing to the Bulls by a score of 142 to 110 on your home floor. That's not good. But they've been consistently bad all season. Like there's not really any bright spots. So it's been a low from the start. And the reason I say that is because like back in November and December when the Sixers were struggling, Michael and I were here on this podcast saying, well, it's because of their health issues. Joel and Paul George and Maxey have played 8 minutes together. At some point, it was like their Sixers are 25 games in the season, and those guys haven't played together much at all. They still haven't played a ton together, but like at that point, it was like, all right, well, we don't know what this team's capable of. And if they somehow get healthy and make the play-in and make the playoffs, we'll be really, really good with that. That's kind of what I felt like, and up until recently, that's what I felt like. But now I'm like, this is not good, because Joel has played. He hasn't been himself. He knows that with the knee issue, and didn't play tonight against Chicago. There are some ideas swirling around that Joel will be shut down for the season. We'll see about that. Again, he certainly hasn't looked like himself. He met with a team of experts to kind of figure out what the best path forward for him is. And if things really are trending that way, then obviously the Sixers are trending not toward tank necessarily, but like their season's over. And as much as I hate to say it, like that's the way it seems to be trending, even for myself and my belief in this team. Like this is Sixers have since Joel, obviously the first couple seasons, but that he played, but since that first season that they made the playoffs several years ago, like they've made the playoffs ever since. They've been a 1 seed in the playoffs. They've been in the play-in. They were there last year. They've been in the middle of the pack in the Eastern Conference, and they've been one of the teams that could, make some noise in the East, and they haven't yet. As far as they have not reached the conference finals yet. And one of the struggles there is this team now this year had a lot of high expectations, and they sit at 20-37. So again, we're recording February 24th. Like this is the lowest of lows that I can think of ever. And I don't want to over exaggerate or recency bias or anything like that, but like this is as low as it's ever been in recent memory for the Sixers in late February. Right? Every other season before, the last several years, they've been trending toward the playoffs. They eventually would make the playoffs. Even those years before Joel or the early stages of the process, like they didn't make the playoffs, but they weren't expected to. And so like late February, if the Sixers were sitting at 20-37 or 10-50, like that was kind of expected because they weren't very good. The problem and why this season has been so painful is because there was a lot of high expectations. You bring in one of the biggest names in free agency in Paul George, and that has just not worked out yet. He's caught a lot of flack for his performance for the Sixers, and now he's had injuries and other issues and not being able to play with Joel, and there's always a different feel out there with this Sixers team, but he has not been very good, and it shows. And so the Sixers are 20-37, and on February 24th, losing 8 in a row, finding themselves on the outside even of the play-in, looking in an Eastern Conference that's really not that difficult to make the play-in, because again, you have the Chicago Bulls, who are the 10 right now, 23-35. They just lost 6 in a row. They're struggling. You got Miami Heat, who are the 9, and they traded Jimmy Butler away. And there's been there's been some surprises in the East. You got Cleveland. You got the Detroit Pistons at the 6 right now. Indiana's good. Milwaukee's good. New York, obviously, 37-20. They're really playing some good ball as of late. And, of course, you got Boston. But the biggest surprise of any team in the Eastern Conference, one being the good would be the Cleveland Cavaliers. They're expected to be good, not 47-10 good. But the biggest surprise in a disappointing fashion has been the Sixers across the whole NBA. Like, there's no doubt about it. They are the most disappointing team in the NBA this season. And it's painful. And again, you can chalk it up to injuries, chalk it up to, even when guys are healthy, well, they haven't really spent much time together. And, we've gone that route every episode this season on Planet 76. And yet, let the chips fall where they may. Like, this team isn't good. And they're struggling. And Joel might not play again this season. And it's a wrap. In a lot of different senses, like this thing's over, and that's how it feels right now. And the wild part again of that is they've struggled for so long all season, and this is the most they've struggled. They have a couple losses to the Nets, one of them involving a Nick Claxton tip in at the buzzer to give them the win just a couple days ago, and then they follow it up with this losing effort to the Bulls. So two teams that are right in there fighting for one of those play-in spots, and Sixers lose to both of them at home. Just not good. But I don't care if Joel's on the floor. I don't care if Paul George. They just don't look good. You shouldn't give up 142 points to the Chicago Bulls, one, who have lost 6 in a row. You shouldn't give up 142 to anybody ever, and you shouldn't do it at home. But they did just that against the team that they're trying to chase in this again play-in push, which is not good. So, but the play-in, playoffs should be the furthest thing, honestly, from all of our minds, and yet the Sixers sit just 2.5 back of that play-in, and at the very least, like if, let's say the Sixers do shut down Joel Embiid, but the Sixers are able to win some games, down the stretch, and they somehow get into that play-in, like at least it would provide some excitement this season and provide something fun to watch, because this has not been fun at all. And while they might enter a playoff series against the Cavaliers, that's even crazy of me to think about. You make the play-in, you win a couple games, and then somehow you play the Cleveland Cavaliers or Boston Celtics and get smacked. At least you made the playoffs, you know what I mean? But, that's so far from where the Sixers are right now, and yet they're only 2.5 back. And one of the kind of, not good news, but one of the funny things, again, is, it's a lot easier to chase someone, as far as getting into the play-in than improving a playoff seeding, because those teams you're chasing in the play-in lose more games than the Celtics or the Cavaliers will. So, Sixers go 500 down the stretch. They're 17 under, and yet they're only 2.5 back. And so, just a kind of funny thing to note there. But anyway, disappointing season. It's just continued. There hasn't been many bright spots at all. Hasn't been consistent play. Haven't seen consistent pieces on the floor. There are even more injuries tonight against the Bulls, and it's just one of those things. And yet you can't give every excuse in the book, because, again, however way you want to slice it, this team is not good right now. They're just not. And if Joel is in fact shut down, I'm not opposed to that. And I think I would have been opposed to that 10 days ago. But with how the Sixers are playing, with how it even looks like he is out on the floor, not really super comfortable, something's still visibly wrong, I have shifted quite a bit toward the shut it down. I'm never going to be a guy that says, tank, because, again, it would be kind of fun to at least have something this season to, win and you're in kind of playing scenario, which would be cool. But other than that, that's the only thing you can hope for at this point. If you're the Sixers, that's it. That would be the end goal, is let's just kind of make the play in and have fun. That's it. So don't tank, but we'll see. I'm kind of rambling, but this is fitting for the Sixers season and what it's been, because it never started bad, didn't really get much better, got worse, and now we're at an all-time low. 20-37, 8 losses in a row to teams that you should and could be beating. And we'll see what happens down the stretch. If Joel Embiid is, in fact, done, then that's all right. We'll see what happens next season. But, obviously that would squash any hope, which there isn't much anyway, of anything the Sixers do in this season. So the Sixers are officially at rock bottom, and it is not a good feeling if you can't tell. So this is episode 171 of Planet 76. We will see you next time. You just listened to an episode of the Planet 76 podcast. Hey, we appreciate you joining us for this episode. Whatever platform you're on, why don't you hit that subscribe button for us, and we'll see you next time.